All right, welcome to another episode of the Healthy Practice, Healthy Patients podcast, where we focus on the health of your practice so you can help focus on the health of your patients. Here we keep you updated on current events in the marketplace. I'm Drew,
I'm Tanya.
and let's go. All right, well, welcome back, Tanya. It's good to be with you.
Likewise.
I, 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 we definitely missed you. It was a one-man show on Friday, and
I caught your podcast though, Drew. You did awesome. So good
thanks.
updates.
It was really
And you look
short.
well rested now.
Oh,
Because
thank you.
you could tell you were on Hawaii time a little bit.
Yes, I was. I took that red eye flight and we arrived back on Thursday morning. And that whole
Mm.
flight, my wife hates flying on the red eye. And the way I was able to convince her to take the red eye is that I would hold the baby. We have an 18-month-old baby.
Mm.
And so I did. And so consequently, I did not sleep.
Uh-huh.
Baby did for the most part, as you can on an airplane, but I didn't sleep. And so I guess it showed up on the on the
Hey,
bottom.
happy baby, happy mom and dad
Yes, yes, and I try to keep
on
my
flights.
wife happy. So she doesn't like the red eye flight. She does like taking there's like an early morning flight that leaves Hawaii, like at 8 a.m. So it's not that early. But what happens is you end up flying the entire day. And the entire day that you have tired children, hungry children, because they don't feed you on the airplane anymore. And I'm not with that.
Totally. So you just
And
want to, yeah, that makes sense. Have them sleep through it.
yeah, and there's no from Hawaii to, Salt Lake City, early in the morning. And I'd rather just suck it up, no sleep. And
Totally.
I'm one who doesn't really need much sleep. I probably need like 3, 4 hours and I'm good. But
So we think, Drew, until the day comes when our reckoning.
I
Yes,
know. And I
No,
guess
good.
it
I'm
showed
glad
on the Friday pod that I was tired. So I'm
you you
sorry.
did awesome. You did awesome with the delivery and the content. No, so I'm so glad you held it down. I would much rather would have been working the Hawaii flight than dealing with sick children. So yeah, happy to be back.
Yeah, hope things are getting better for your family and actually surprised
Yeah,
me here this morning.
yeah, it's so funny. 2023, I think the lesson and the realization I'm coming to is the importance of slowing down, getting ample rest, and just kind of taking care of like the basic necessities, health, right?
Right.
You need your body, health as well. Um, so yeah, no, my son, this is my oldest son. He's kind of my high pain tolerance kid, and so didn't realize that he was just really figured that been paying attention to him. We have some family health history of like medical conditions, and so kind of just noticed he's been off. And long story short, what we thought was a ruptured appendix ended up being just a really bad bacterial infection, tummy bug. So we spent a couple nights in the hospital just getting him back up to speed, antibiotics. He's still kind of off, he's not back to his full self, but at least we're home. So we can all just take care of each other at home as opposed to the split parent life at the hospital with some kids at home. So
Shoot, I'm sorry. Dang it. 'Cause
yeah.
as you were going through that, I was thinking, maybe she's cursed by being on this pod.
Last year was such a grind of a year. Truly, I think to a point where we kind of just worked our bones off, and this year we're really feeling that. And just like these emergency doctor's visits, dental visits have really kind of highlighted definitely the importance of practicing just self-care.
Yeah.
Um, and definitely have seen kind of just how the intersection of overall, like overall health, you have your oral health, you have your nutritional health, you have the way that your behavioral health kind of influences and it impacts all of that. And so definitely like balance is important.
Yeah,
And
certainly.
totally just feeling that. So that is my 2023 lesson for
Okay.
January.
We took our trip to Hawaii and, in that same vein of self-care, that really was the best vacation
uh,
for me and for the family. And it wasn't completely, vacation. I did work, and I got to go around to see some dental offices. But I agree with you. It's not overrated, and
It's
good to
you
pamper yourself sometime.
definitely, and it's so funny. It kind of fell in line. I was kind of just looking through some of the articles, seeing what's new in dental land and in marketplace. I thought you covered so well last week the marketplace and what's going on with the tech sector and the job market. Kind of in looking at a different set of things, I came across, just an article about Penn Dental Medicine adding a dual degree option to their program, adding the nutritional science portion to their degree. So, aspiring dentists can add that component to their education. The whole incentive being to help encourage kind of that holistic approach to, obviously oral care,
Right.
because that, nutrition impacts oral care, and nutrition also can be influenced by, the behavioral habits and things like that. And so I thought it was so timely given just some of the things I'm experiencing personally, with my family, with my health, with my children. I can absolutely see how behavior influences nutrition, which impacts oral care, and just kind of having, a healthcare provider that's informed of kind of the intersection of all of those different angles, man, would be such a really cool approach to care, right? And to patient relationships. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I
Come
think
across
that's pretty
that.
awesome. As you're talking about that, I just got out of a meeting with colleagues that I work with, health specialists in academia, and they all come from across the country, Minnesota, DC, California, Washington State, Texas. And the discussion for this morning, we were talking about, we looked at the median age of a PhD, postdoc, MD, professional who's submitting, there's different types of grants, R01s, K awards, U01s. They're different levels. And then there are
Mm,
also kind of indicators of where you are in your professional career. And what we were seeing is the median age in our project, from our sample pool, is that individuals who come from um, you know, underrepresented minority groups, URM, they were older than what you would see from the general white population that we
mm,
would see. And so we were trying to identify in our project, we're trying to identify what is it that's prolonging their career. So you mentioned that additional degree, um, you know, becoming more specialized and becoming a better provider. That when I hear that, that means more years, more time,
mm.
right? That's committed to getting more training, additional education, more knowledge, and then potentially delaying when you start to make that return on investment as you
Mm.
start making more money. So I think it's wonderful that there's those type of opportunities. But I also thought it was interesting that I just got out of a meeting where, the big issue, the big problem that we're seeing from URMs is that they're a lot older than our white cohort.
Interesting. That's super interesting. I definitely can relate to just kind of the behavioral component, right? Like, obviously, there's so many differences when you dial down into just lifestyle and the way that people are living their lives. I mean, you'll see it as you start to kind of just drill down into everyday life for different groups of people, right?
Mhm.
Knowing your patients, kind of where they come from, their backgrounds, is so important to understanding kind of the why, right, behind what you're seeing as like a provider. So that's really interesting to hear it. I mean, from a provider standpoint of kind of what the data looks like, kind of just makes you wonder why.
Yeah,
But
I was thinking, with the when we were in our undergrad and we had, Jake and Vi who and shoot, I don't want to say her name wrong. but they were in medical school. But I think about them, it's almost non-traditional. Students who are actually making it to graduate school. I look at who are those students that come, from Pacific Islander background. Perhaps they had dropped out earlier and then started a family and then came back and,
Yeah.
and joined.
Yeah.
And
That's so funny. Yeah.
in the meeting, that's what I had brought up. Just that experience or just that observation that I had made, that we have higher success rate with our non-traditional students than we do with our traditional students who make the leap directly from high school into undergraduate and then into graduate school.
Definitely. I like to think of it as kind of, you know, these first generation students maybe that are breaking lots of barriers and ending lots of cycles for their families to kind of just up that level, right?
Right.
Um, so you're going to find a lot of non-traditional students in that sense. Hopes being that by the times our kids, the second generation, third generation comes up, that they'll just be well ingrained into just the how-tos, right? Won't have to make the same mistakes or take the harder route that mom and dad took, but hopefully it'll be a lot easier for them just to bypass some of those, barriers or long, routes that their parents ended up having to take. So
Right, right.
super cool to see that data.
And I'm also part of this selection committee, selecting students from high school and freshmen and in college to join this summer program. And they've never had a Pacific Islander apply for the program. And so that's something that I'm trying to do, get the word out about this opportunity. But it's a month long, or it's a summer long commitment from May
Hmm.
to August, and they need to be there every week. They can go home over the weekends. But I was thinking, man, from our community, attending funerals is important, attending birthdays is important, attending weddings is super important. And I would hate for our, students from our background to miss out on this opportunity because of that family obligation,
Right.
right? And this program is so rigid that it wouldn't allow for them to miss a Monday because they were on their way back from a family wedding, or miss a few days because there's a funeral for them to attend.
Hmm.
So, just thinking about disparities like that. Yes, they are trying to increase representation and opportunities, but perhaps they're not taking into full context, who their who these participants are and what their backgrounds and their experiences are. Kind of like what you're saying about getting that additional training and getting that additional perspective on the patients that they're treating.
Definitely. I'm such a huge fan of, the technical side, being well versed in treatments and knowing how to apply, the science of what you do to your patients. But I absolutely also believe in the importance of the human side, being able to really relate to the art of the human application.
Mhm.
People are so different, and understanding kind of their kinks, where they come from, their perspectives, their views, and being able to tailor fit your service, your skill set to them in a way that helps them to encourage kind of that behavior change, right?
Right.
Like I said, me going to the dentist, recently was such a great reminder for me of different things. But like that 2 minute brushing of the teeth was, this appointment was what I needed, for example, to reinforce like, hey, I need to teach these healthy habits to my children. We need to make it a family routine. Um, and it might sound so simple to a healthcare provider, to a dentist, but as someone who is not a dentist and who honestly, grew up with wellness checkups, thankfully had parents that took us. I think it is something to think about because it's, I'll be honest, I don't think I really viewed oral care in the same context of like healthcare and nutrition, but I needed these reminders to kind of see that they are all equal pillars, right? And are equally important to overall healthcare. Um, so
Yeah.
anyway, super cool to kind of see.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I guess part of it comes down to timing, and for you, this might just be your time. Others seem to learn the lesson later in life, and perhaps others, a little sooner. And speaking of timing, I came across my article. They're talking about timing the market,
Ah,
and I know that is it Charlie Munger that talks about it's not timing the market, but it's time in the market that will really benefit you. Um, but they're saying, and I guess this article is pretty negative. It was I guess their slant was if you're successful in timing the markets because of nefarious activities that are going on, insider trade and those type of things. But I thought, I guess the thought came to my mind, when my wife and we like I said, I have an 18-month-old baby. When we go to Costco and we always go by the diaper aisle, whether we need diapers or not. And when we see the price drop, because they usually discount it by 15 bucks, that's when we load up on all the boxes,
yeah.
right? And then we'll take it home. Um, and so sometimes we can kind of see the market dip down lower, and that might be a time for when we go in to buy. And then when we see the market go up with the prices, it wouldn't be so opportune to purchase.
Hmm.
And so I was seeing a report how PPE, personal protection equipment, the cost of that has tripled in the past year, and the cost of personnel. So the cost of paying a hygienist has gone up. The cost of paying an assistant has gone up because dentistry in the workplace hasn't recovered from COVID.
Hmm.
Those employees have not returned. And so the current employees, they can demand a higher wage because they've got the bargaining power. Um, but what I was saying about stocking up your supplies, perhaps you'll see a dip in the cost of supplies, cost of PPE, and perhaps that might be a time for you to stock up. I know it's hard to really judge because some people are more optimistic than others, about the recovery from the recession and seeing a soft landing. Um, what are some of your thoughts on timing the market and the cost of
You bring,
different things?
yeah, you bring up such a great point, Drew, and how you're looking at it is really sound. First and foremost, I think, from a financial planning standpoint, um, there is the general belief in the financial services industry with a lot of financial professionals that markets are efficient, meaning that everything you're seeing in the news is priced into the market accordingly, and that unless you have a crystal ball and can gauge when that next step is coming, really there's no real way to kind of accurately pinpoint when those drops and dips come. But what we can bank on is that those drops, those ebbs and flows that you see in the market will come. And so kind of just thinking of it from, strategy from the standpoint of how can I optimize my ability to take advantage of said circumstances when they arise, um, being that we don't know when they'll arise. And so, you bring up a good point of, taking advantage of those moments means to be prepared to take advantage of those moments, right? And so having ample liquidity, you will always hear in financial planning um, the advice to have, an ample liquidity reserve, accessible money that allows you to make moves when opportunities do present themselves, and figuring out what what that number is for you. Oftentimes in planning, in personal finances, they'll say 3 to 6 months of a reserve for your personal finances. So taking maybe that same metric and applying it, to a business, um, thinking of your reserves in that way allows you just some cushion to kind of either tap into it when you need to, or tap into it when it might be advantageous to. So yeah, I absolutely agree. You're sound. Your logic is sound.
This might be a little funny, but I was thinking when you mentioned efficiency and strategy and the cost of PPE tripling over the past year, I would hate to see a dentist recognize that the cost of PPE has tripled. That means for every 3 patients, I'm using the same gloves,
mm,
maintain the same kind of prices.
right.
What does that mean? I would still wear my gloves, but then I would go and sterilize them
Ah,
and jump from patient to patient. It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. But
right,
but
right.
that was the thought that came to my mind when you were saying efficiency and strategy.
Gotcha. Yeah. Hopefully, I'm sure my dentist changed his gloves in between between my mouth to the next. But,
You did.
definitely just good time to, reassess finances
Mhm.
and, see where maybe some waste is, some things that you could possibly cut back on. But just to have, for the sake of helping or building a reserve, um, you know, um, in the event there are buying opportunities.
I think that's good. I think that impresses on us the importance of knowing your numbers and knowing
Totally.
knowing what your burn rate is or the cut your expenses, your monthly expenses, what that number is. I like your recommendation of 3 to 6 months of having those reserves in store. And so how you do that is you look at your expenses every month and you multiply that by 3 or you multiply it by 6. It's really simple. And hopefully you're making more money than you're burning.
Definitely.
Otherwise, we're here to help. Shameless plug. But I think this is great. Great information. Thanks, Tanya, for your help and your input, and thanks for being here after an exhausting weekend. I
Likewise, true.
I
It's
hope
a
that
pleasure.
this is the end of the curse of being.
Yeah. I got the lesson, universe. Take care of health.
Yeah, no more
Yes.
emergency visits. We're going to prepare. We're going to have a 3 to 6 month storage, and we're going to care of things. So thanks for another episode of Healthy Practice, Healthy Patients, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on Friday.
Thanks, Drew.